All right, people, live, ready to go. Got me another guest again. Again, like I planned on doing Eubank versus Benn previews. Well, we're not doing previews now. We're kind of doing what the hell is happening with this. I'm joined by special guest Joe Stunner Boxer. Mate, do you want to introduce yourself? Let the people know. Tell them a bit about yourself and your channel.
Yeah, Joe Stunner Boxing does what it says on the tin. I just give predictions, previews, give my thoughts on fights. Nothing fancy about it. Just I only started the channel to sort of meet other boxing fans really. But take a look at the channel. Maybe you like it. If so, subscribe. Appreciate it.
Doing well. He only started it to make, a little bit of this, and you're already at over 750. Link is there in the description. I have that comment pinned on the channel as well. So this live, anyone who clicks on it, it's the first thing you see. Just go on, Joe Stunner Boxing, give it a sub. But man, you say you want to talk boxing. We got a lot to talk about. We literally do. And shout out to Jamie. Salute to you, man. Appreciate you dropping by every single time. One of the best around. Jamie, we got a lot of time for him. And definitely, I'll have you on here at some point as well, mate. Definitely. But got a lot to talk about. I was just thinking the news this week, I expected it only to be about Canelo Golovkin, and it's been the opposite. We've had nothing about that really. It's been mainly just Eubank, Fury, everything. We got to start with Eubank, Ben. It's fresh in the minds of people. Chris Eubank Sr. made a comment on Monday that he's pulling Junior out. He doesn't feel that this basically is the right weight, that he feels it's dangerous. He mentioned his son, his late son Sebastian, RIP to him. What are your thoughts on this? Some people have said that he's trying to sell the fight with this, and I don't think he is. I don't think you'd bring up Sebastian to sell a fight. I think he genuinely is concerned. What do you think about it? And do you think that this fight potentially is in danger of being binned? Bear in mind, we've had no undercard fights announced, and we're only a few weeks away from it.
The undercard point is a good one. I didn't realise that actually, but yeah, you're quite right. I don't think the fight's in danger of being binned. I don't think that was ever the case because Eubank Jr. at 32, you would presume he's his own man. I do think Eubank Sr. is sincere. You've got to bear in mind that this is a man who, crippled Michael Watson, actually killed a road worker in an accident, a traffic accident, when he was speeding. He hit the guy who was working on the road somehow. Then there's a Nick Blackwell thing, and now we've got the sad passing of his son. And he did say, "I've lost one son, I don't intend to lose another." Now, I think he's quite sincere. I can't really. No, I don't. I'm pretty certain he wouldn't make. He wouldn't.
No.
It's not just to sell tickets. I mean, come on, you'd have to be a total psychopath to do something like that.
You couldn't. He has heart. You can see it in him. He's empty.
Yeah, I think Eubank Senior, as eccentric as he is basically a decent man. So I don't think it's a ticket seller. But I don't think it will impact on the fight itself. I think the fight will go ahead. But yeah, you're quite right about the undercard. That's interesting. I've forgotten about that.
It's two things with the undercard. One, it could genuinely be that maybe Eddie Hearn knows something. Maybe Sauerland obviously are saying it's going ahead, but you'd expect that. Most promoters, they wouldn't. They'd obviously try and keep the interest in it until they absolutely have to. Eddie Hearn was the guy saying not long before Joshua Fury was binned last year that, yeah, it's ready to go. Do you think that some of the reason why there's no undercard yet could be the fact that I spoke about this recently, that Eddie Hearn has lost a lot of fighters, and maybe they weren't big names, but they were card fillers?
Yeah, I could see this coming when Hearn was getting rid of people like Liam Smith. I think the writing on the wall then. The strength of Hearn when he was with Sky is the sheer depth of the stable. And which is why he was able to put on such good cards, and B, able to, that there was some depth to those cards. It wasn't like the last Boxer card was horrible. It was just
was terrible. It was awful.
Yeah, it was just absolutely awful because there's a lack of. I mean, all right, they're still finding their feet, but there's a lack of fighters in that stable. Now, I remember when Eddie was with Sky, attending a couple of the next gen shows. They were brilliant, really, really.
They were very good.
Yeah, I went to the one in Peterborough. I went to one at the York Hall. Brilliant stuff. Really entertaining fights, and you were literally watching the next generation of stars. But Eddie hasn't retained a lot of those, second tier fighters. I mean, even people like.
Well, Lawrence Coley headlined one of them. I think he fought Camacho on one of the cards. I think it was in the York Hall actually.
He
Um,
fought. Yeah, I know who you mean. He fought. Oh, the guy who's the current English champ. Knocked him out in 3 rounds. I was there. I can't remember.
yeah. Oh, it wasn't Camacho. It was the other guy. Isaac Chamberlain fought him. Can't remember his name though.
What's his name?
Yeah,
Anyway,
no, I can't remember. I know,
yeah.
I know exactly who you're talking about, but I can't remember his name either.
And I went to another one where Benn, Conor Benn.
Oh yeah.
He headlined. That was a great card.
They were great little things, and that's something that Eddie Hearn talked about doing with the zone last year. We never saw.
Yeah,
I don't think he can do it now.
No, he can't. But he's also got rid of, like, who was the kid? What the hell? This is what happens when you get to my age, mate. You forget the names. There was a young. I think he was a Kazakh kid, but good amateur.
You're loose enough.
Thank you. Yes, him, and also a kid from America who I saw at the Peterborough Next Gen show, who had one loss, and then Eddie got rid of him.
Sims Jr. Yeah.
Yeah, I should do my homework really before I come on it. But anyway,
I just got a good memory.
You have. But had he retained their services, as well as, your Liam Smiths and so on, he would still have. He'd still be able to put on cards that whilst not being, maybe elite, at times you could think, well, he had too many sweets in the bag, didn't he? Because when he was struggling to find, a place for all of them. But now it's the other side of the coin. He hasn't got enough names to sort of pad out these cards and make them decent. And I think, generally speaking, DAZN's product has been pretty good so far. Generally speaking, there have been a couple of duds, but you're quite right when you say from here on, what's going to happen? Yeah.
To be expected. I mean, in terms of this show, Eubank Benn, I suspect it probably will go ahead, to be honest with you, the more I think about it. But obviously the talking point is that rehydration clause. Now, I hate them. I can't stand them. I absolutely, if there's one thing I cannot stand, it's the rehydration clause. I don't necessarily mind catch weights and non-title fights, but can't stand rehydration clause. Do you think that the British Boxing Board of Control have done themselves a disservice by allowing this fight to take place with a rehydration clause, considering the fact that they've cancelled fights like Casemiro Butler because Casemiro, they deemed, was cutting too much weight?
Yeah, in a word, it's initially that the debate was, do you have the weigh-in the day before, or do you have it on the day of the fight? So that argument, that debate has never really gone away fully. But when you introduce rehydration clauses, to me, it's dangerous. I mean, I don't dislike catch weights if they're sensibly done, and it depends on the fighters. Like, for example, I'm going to go way back here, but you had Carmen Basilio coming up to meet Sugar Ray Robinson, for example, just off the top of my head. Mm-hmm. But Robinson was never really a big middleweight. He was always more of a
welterweight was his division,
And then Basilio, so they kind of met in the middle. This is a case of one guy jumping up, who was a small welterweight, Benn, and Eubank, who hasn't been. I think he was 158.5. I think he was for one of his early fights, but he hasn't been
very early,
in short trousers. So you're now talking about a guy cutting down dangerously low, and to not allow his body to recover seems to me potentially dangerous. And for the board to not even make a comment about this, as far as I know, there's been no statement about it.
No,
isn't it?
It's a double standard. I think it's just incredible to me. Like, no disrespect to Paul Butler, but that's a fight between him and Casimir that wasn't going to generate any real money. So the board behaved as they should, trying to stop a fighter cutting too much weight. This fight is going to generate a lot of money, and the board are kind of saying, don't care, making money, let it happen.
I think with the smaller guys, and yes, this does hold water, this argument that they're small. So 3 pounds, for example, is a lot of weight to be cut.
Sure.
With the bigger guys, bigger-ish anyway, the board probably have the attitude, well, as long as it's monitored well, they can get away with it. But the key word there is monitor. The board themselves should be monitoring anything like this and taking it very, very seriously, because, Eubank Senior, I know a lot of what he said did seem a little melodramatic, but he's got a point. He's got a point.
Oh yeah,
you can't. The argument.
I bear in mind, Senior was someone in his prime when he was fighting at middleweight and super middle who did cut an awful lot of weight. He did it badly, so he knows himself probably the effect that had on him physically. And I'm sure he's thinking, well, my son could do it before when there was no clause and all that, but now he's going to have to do it twice, essentially. Like I said, that he's essentially weighing in 157 pounds middleweight, and then the next day he's going to have to weigh in at super middleweight, which he's fought at before. So essentially, he's basically weighing in twice, literally twice at 2 different weight divisions.
Yeah.
Not intentionally, just almost unintentionally, because he's being forced to.
And then you've got is it every pound over the 157, he's charged
a couple of $100,000, yeah, it's a couple of $100,000. Now, for me, Eubank Jr. is in a situation where I wouldn't be surprised if he misses the rehydration check weight the next day. Now, they did say that if he does do that, Conor Benn can call off the fight then and there. Yeah. But this is going to sound cynical, but if you think of Eddie Hearn and DAZN, how bad they need a big pay-per-view card, I can't see, even if Conor Benn wants to, they'd say, look, we've got this, people have paid for this, we are not refunding these for this pay-per-view, you are flipping fighting him. So do you think maybe Team Eubank know that and know, all right, look, we can, Chris Jr. maybe knows in his deep down that, okay, look, I can miss that rehydration clause, yeah, I might get fined, but they are not pulling that card. They need me more than I need them.
Yeah, I think there's a fair chance he'll at least be a pound or two over the rehydration clause and pay the fine. But the fight won't get cancelled. There's too much riding on it. I mean, I don't know how much they're getting paid.
It's close to the mid 7 figures. It's not like 1 million or 2 million. I've heard rumors that it's up as high as 8 million split between the two. So you can just imagine that. That's a couple of $100,000 taken off that is. Yeah, a couple of $100,000 is a lot of money, but it's not, when you're taking it away from that, it doesn't weigh into much if you think about it.
No, and it's worth doing for safety's sake. But no, they won't pull it hard, especially not at the 11th hour. I mean, we've just had that, cancellation of your women's card, and the ramifications of that are terrible. But they won't pull this one.
I will talk about that now in a wee bit, but that was something that I was thinking of as well. Maybe for Senior, he doesn't know the ins and outs. Maybe he thinks that Eubank Jr. is going to do the rehydration clause and weigh in. But a part of me is thinking, actually, do you know what? You can call their bluff, because they're saying they will pull out of the fight if you don't do the rehydration. DAZN need this so bad. People who have paid the money, it's at the 11th hour. They will not bin this. I think even if you weighed in at 190 pounds the next day, they'd still say you fight them tough.
And they're a fledgling platform, so they need events like this, and if it was to fall, their name would be mud, because
I genuinely think that. And again, the more I these things come to your head after you make the video, which I always make a video when I feel to myself, I'm like, oh crap, I should have put that point in. It's a point that I think you got to think of it, that DAZN do not want, they've already cut themselves out by saying Canelo Triple G won't be paid per view to the UK, and it is. They've not put on as many shows. We've had hardly any shows in the last, we've had 2 shows in 2 months, if even 3 months nearly. So for them, they're probably, look, this has to go ahead by hook or by crook. We don't really care if he misses the weight. It's there for fine purposes, but even if he comes in heavy the next day, you're fighting him. Simple as.
And then I don't think this will happen, but let's just say they pulled out or Ben pulled out, they'd probably be sued. So
there's a high likelihood of that. So, and I think as well as that, if Conor Benn did pull out, I don't know how well the public would take to that, because again, if Eubank was to pull out now for whatever reason, it would fall on him. But if Conor Benn was to do it at the 11th hour, I don't know if people would even give him a pass, especially if Team Eubank said, oh, we missed the rehydration clause by 2 or 3 pounds. People would just be like, we're not giving you a pass on that. You're only talking 2 or 3 pounds and you pulled out. We're not passing on that.
There was a Danny Williams fight once, I can't remember, 15, 20 years ago, where he pulled out literally on the morning of the weigh-in. I can't remember, but it was hours, not days before. And everyone was fuming, and there were lawsuits or threats of lawsuits being thrown around. And, people spent money, traveling to this contest, hotels and so on and so forth, travel fare, what the price of fuel is like. Well, over here it's bad. Sure, it's bad in Ireland as well, but
it is.
It's people ain't gonna. You only get so many passes, and an 11th hour, pulling the plug at the 11th hour is not something people take too kindly to. With the one on Saturday with the women's card, it was very, very unusual circumstances. I don't personally agree with pulling the card, but
no.
There was some, I think people said, okay, well, this is a weird sort of situation. It's, you know, once in a lifetime situation. But to just pull the card over, you know, anything to do with weight or anything like that, look, ultimately they won't have a leg to stand on, because people will say, well, you knew about this. You signed contracts. What the hell are you doing, you know?
Exactly. And yeah, I don't think people would give them a pass on that. And just speaking on actually the card that was cancelled the weekend, you know, Nicola Hopewell is a good up and coming boxer. She has been on here a few times. She had tickets and accommodation, everything to that. And I remember her like posting a few pics. She had to go to like some West End shows instead, because she said it's already paid for. So I'm kind of stuck. In terms of the all-female card, what are your thoughts on that? And I know me and you are in agreement. We don't agree with it being cancelled. I certainly don't. What are your thoughts on it being cancelled? And what are your thoughts on the updated date? I personally don't think that's a good date, October 15th. It's clashing. The week before, you've got Ben Eubank, and that evening, you've got Wilder Helenius, as well as that, you've got Kambosos Haney. I think that for that fight to get its maximum views, they need to do it kind of when there's nothing around, if you know what I mean. And I think that it's kind of maybe almost been, I don't know what Ben Shalom, what his situation is with the O2 and stuff like that, but for me it feels like he rushed into it as quick as he could.
Okay, to start with, I didn't agree with the cancel of the card.
No, definitely not.
I'll try and keep this brief because I've got a lot of thoughts on this. I did quite a long video on this if you want to go and watch it. But first of all, let me just say I'm not a royalist. However, I did have respect for the Queen, mainly because she was A, dignified, and B, she had a lot of stoicism. She was very sort of keep calm and carry on. Well, this is not keeping calm and carrying on. This is a blanket cancellation of all sorts of sporting events. The fighters don't, if they don't fight, they don't get paid. They've already spent tens of thousands of pounds on, you know, camps and so on and so forth, travel fare. What about the American girls coming up all the way to England?
It's not cheap.
Not cheap at all. And all the people, as you know, Nicola Hopewell is not on her own. There are thousands and thousands of other people who did the same thing and are out of pocket. So I don't agree with that. As far as the 5-week postponement is concerned, yeah, I take your point about the sort of traffic jam of fights that might be within that time frame. However, I think that the main, from the fighter's point of view, the main issue is the weight. If you
Michaela Meyer comes to mind.
Exactly. I mean, she is the perfect example. She looked tight at the weight, to put it mildly. Now, if you're making weight for a fight and getting fighting fit, which is very different to being fit, it's kind of like if you climb Everest. Once you get to the top, you have a look round, and then you move down.
Built to mark, unrivaled.
Yeah, it's unrivaled, is it? Oh,
that is indeed. Kellis Sauerland.
Oh, nice one. Get back on here, Mark. Come on, son. Right, anyway, if you climb Everest, and you know that is a hell of a. I mean, people die climbing Everest. You then climb down again, and you have to replenish your body. What these fighters have been asked to do is you're reaching the top of Everest. You're almost there. Hang on a minute. You've got to climb halfway down. Then you've got to climb up again. You're putting extra mileage on the body, and it's okay if you make the weight with relative ease. It might not be too bad, but for someone like Michaela Meyer, you quite rightly mentioned, I mean, this is not fair on the girl. I think Savannah Marshall made the weight okay, but she's big.
She's big for the weight, but out of the two, I would say Michaela Meyer would be the one I'd be more worried about at the weight than Savannah Marshall. I think that, and Savannah Marshall, again, at the end of the day, jet lag won't affect her because she's living in the UK. Michaela Meyer's gonna have to go back to the US, jet lag, come back. It just doesn't, for me, that I was picking Bam Barner to win that fight before, but now I'm like, she's definitely gonna win because that's gonna absolutely kill Michaela Meyer.
I made my prediction. I picked Michaela Meyer as a points winner, like a hard-fought fight, but a points winner. But then I saw how she was struggling with the weight, and I tend to agree that now she's only got 5 weeks to kind of keep it ticking over. Because don't forget, if you're making weight, that has a psychological, a mental effect on you. You can moods, you know, it can, which of course in turn lead to lack of self-belief, perhaps, or you know, it can really impact negatively on you. And to me, there was no need for that card to be cancelled. I was so angry when I can't tell you. I'll be looking, and look, I would be angry if it was just about, the card being cancelled, because I don't think it should be cancelled. But when you factor in the fighters and what they've gone through and what they now have to do all over again, I just don't think it's very fair. And if you care about boxing and boxers, you've got to think of the fighters, because we don't want to see anyone injured.
No. And like, you think of the undercard fighters, I mean, a lot of those opponents were like, a lot of the girls on that card, the up and coming prospects, were in kind of, easy enough fights. But those opponents might be like, well, you're not paying, I'm not coming back. So will they be able to get more opponents in to fight? Because a lot of those, journeymen from Eastern Europe, places like that, they're coming with the sole purpose of getting paid. That's it. And if they're not paid, they're like, well, we're not coming back.
Yeah. But I mean, if you look at thinking back to the card, I'm going through it in my head. There were the two main fights were excellent. I mean, really, really good.
Yeah, great fights.
But then when you get further down the card, like you say, you were talking journeywomen fighting prospects. But, I would have been interested to see that. I mean, we all know there isn't a great deal of depth in the women's game, like as far as the gene pool's concerned. But it's growing. And to me, the appeal of watching this current incarnation of women's boxing is that I remember when there have always been female boxers going right back to, 40, 50, 60 years. But this current incarnation of the women's game, I think it's interesting to see how it does grow. And this would have been a milestone event. And now the plug's been pulled for, as far as I'm concerned, no real reason.
No, I agree with that. And again, I fear for that card in the sense of that, the up and coming card, not in the sense that it'll get cancelled, but in the sense that we won't get the fights we should have got, in a sense of we won't get them at their best. And at the end of the day, I think that it's going to leave a bad taste in people. Some people may not be able to. Bear in mind, mate, everything is expensive. You can afford a weekend in London, but you can't afford it in 5 weeks again, because that was your going away money almost for that week. Because London is dear, I know that well. So we might not get as many people in the O2. It's clashing in with a lot more fights, so there might not be as much. To be like, oh, we watched Benn last week, and then we're staying up for Wilder tonight. Oh, we don't have time. We're going to wait for Wilder, and probably won't wait for Devin Haney versus Cambosa, because the first one wasn't great. But you know what I mean? There's other fights as well. So I think that it's whatever it would have done, it's not going to do as well this time, in my opinion.
I agree. Yeah. No, if I was Ben Shalom and all concerned, I would be saying, I hope one or two of those other fights are cancelled, but I don't know they will be.
No, I don't think they will be either.
Yeah.
No, if I was him, again, I don't know legally with the fighters, the women and all that, what they could have done, but I would have been trying to get it maybe late January, start of February. I know it's a long way to push back to, but just bearing everything in mind, I would have probably tried to get a good pushback, because I wouldn't have done it in December with the World Cup. And I would have tried that just to get it as far back, just so the fighters are, okay in terms of the weight making, and that we have a clear, this is where we are. But
well, also we're back to, we started off by making this point about weight making and the board. I mean, are the board going to monitor this? They should, with people like Wyatt, who are struggling. But will they? And it was, our friend from the board was saying, that terribly intelligent, rational man was saying, the Queen's dead. The Queen is dead. So I totally agree. I feel we should cancel this, because it did come from the board. It didn't come from the promoters. So, you've made that decision. Okay, you've made that decision. Now you make sure you monitor the safety of the fighters. If it's only a 5-week postponement, would he do it?
Do you think he'll do it? I doubt it. Knowing the way that guy is, no, he won't do it. He won't do it. And again, I think we don't ask much. We ask for consistency from the board.
Yeah.
And I don't think we get that. I don't think we get that from anyone in boxing, to be honest with you, be it sanctioned bodies, drug agencies. Consistency is the main thing, but we've kind of seen all over the world that doesn't happen.
Well, any moral point, whether it's in boxing or in life, any walk of life, if there's no consistency, it becomes redundant. Right. Exactly. I mean, it's like I work with drug addicts and alcoholics. They're the same thing, but alcohol's legal, heroin and crack isn't. So how are you going to win that moral argument? So my attitude is I'm kind of Switzerland on this. I'm neutral. And it's the same. If you don't have any kind of consistency, any kind of logic or reason behind a moral point, it's irrelevant. Doesn't matter.
Hmm. And unfortunately, mate, I think we're going to still see this happen a lot more. I really do. And I get it goes to the kind of question of a unified one governing body in boxing, which I don't think will ever happen. And I don't think we'll ever see that. But when you have all these different bodies with different rules, they're going to make it up as they go along, and they're going to favor someone here and there. Like we look at the WBC, Anthony Joshua hasn't fought a WBC sanctioned fight in 7 years. In the nearly 7 years come December, he's had 2 back-to-back losses. He's number 6 in their rankings, just like that.
Yeah, I mean, I go back when I first started watching boxing and started to really get into it. It was 2 ruling bodies, the WBA and the WBC.
Yeah.
And then a couple of years later, was it 83? The IBF came?
The early 80s, the IBF came, yeah.
Yeah, so I've been watching boxing for 4 or 5 years, and then they came along, and I thought, oh, so I think Larry Holmes, they gave Larry Holmes.
Yeah, they gave Larry Holmes that.
And I thought, okay, well, 3, come on, let's take the piss in it. And then the WBO came along, and it wasn't taken seriously anywhere apart from in England. It was predominantly Frank Warren who put on a load of WBO shows. Well, you've now got the IBO and whoever else. It's only a matter of time before they gain some sort of gravitas, and then people start wearing. Already you see people holding the IBO belt. So I think there'll be more of these ruling bodies. That's a bad thing, obviously, but
terrible.
You never get a one ruling body. And this is, I mean, look at the PED issue. That different tests have different substances on their list of banned substances. What do we do?
Yeah, and they have different rules in terms of how they enforce their bans. Some of them, remember I told you about that, they won't even admit when a fighter has failed. They'll leave that under the rug. If you remember when I told you that last time.
I remember.
Yeah, they won't even announce when a fighter's failed a test, which is crazy. You think they would, but no. And that wasn't VADA. That was another agency, and we won't talk about that because that could get me in a lot of trouble. So
no. I remember you saying no, but this is. Yeah, this is actually nothing new, of course, because once the public and once there was a public outcry, if you like, against a certain mode of behaviour, that mode of behaviour gets amended. It becomes perhaps more subtle. So, for example, we all know boxing historically has been very corrupt. Corruption still goes on, but it is it's not brown envelopes under dinner tables to someone who just happened to have been having dinner with, who happens to be a judge or whatever. It's a bit more subtle than that. It's a bit more nuanced. But whether it's PEDs, whether it's anything to do with the finances, I mean, look at Jerome Miller, for Christ's sake, that fat prick. He's been banned twice, and he's still going strong.
He is a case in point. Like, I mean, there's no consistency there. He's able to pick up his career, and he's fighting. Apparently, he's going to fight Lucas Brown in November. I mean, there you go. I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, that is just tremendous.
The WBC is going to make a belt for them. It's probably going to be called the PED belt.
They will still do some, and they'll get ranked. The winner of that will get ranked. Let's just go away.
Yeah.
On a more lighter note, we're not talking about the drug use, but move on to a more lighter note. Obviously, last week, Tyson Fury made a call out to Anthony Joshua. And we heard rumors that AJ's team were seriously considering accepting it. Now, for me, from a fan, I like the fight, but obviously, if you ask me what I think it's AJ's best interest, it will be not to. But he announced on Tuesday that he's taken this fight. Well, his team have agreed terms. So it's essentially a case of this fight is looking likely that it may potentially happen in December. What are your thoughts on this? And do you, like me, think that Anthony Joshua should just take the harder road, go with Robert Garcia, train with him, get out of your comfort zone, and just wait and rebuild? Or do you think actually no, taking Tyson Fury fight is a good idea, despite the fact he literally had a mental breakdown last month in the ring?
He should definitely not fight. I don't think he should fight anyone for 6 months. I don't know whether Robert Garcia is the man to carry him forward. I don't know. I absolutely despise this whole, Fernandez Garcia duet they're trying to do. I seen Hatman's
video, and he mentioned an interview with Barry McGuigan I hadn't seen it. I watched it today, and it was fascinating. He made some very, very good points to Barry McGuigan. And again, it's almost like Robert Garcia and Angel Fernandez. It's like Garcia saying, I'm here, I'm hearing this and that. It's like,
It's ridiculous.
no, man, you need the one voice in the corner, and that's it. And if Garcia is the guy, Robert Garcia can't be saying, well, I'm hearing this or this. It has to go through him.
But Garcia must have done it for the money, because he doesn't strike me as a sort of bloke who put up with that sort of nonsense. You need one voice in the corner. I made a video saying the ideal person to train AJ would be Peter Fury. He won't do it because he's got Huey. No. But to me, that would be a marriage made, fistic marriage made in heaven. As far as Joshua fighting Fury goes, but you got to bear in mind these two guys' characters. Joshua will fight anyone, and he's proved it time and time again. Win or lose, he'll fight anyone. He fought guys for belts. He's fought with mandatories. He's ducked absolutely no one. Fury is far more, now, depending on your point of view, either cynical or more shrewd, perhaps a bit of both, because he will take he will analyze a situation, wait for the dust to settle, wait for other fighters to knock each other off. He'll use all sorts of nonsensical. We all know he bullshits with the nose, doesn't he? I mean, but he's not someone who cares about the Warriors Code, dare I call it. He's out for himself, and he's out kind of like Floyd Mayweather was. Floyd Mayweather would wait for the dust to settle. He'd wait for other fighters these fighters to pick each other off. He'd say, well, that guy beat that guy. You want me to fight him? He's already been beaten by him. Yeah, but you haven't beaten him. So it's like Fury saying about AJ. Yeah, he's been beaten. So a middleweight beat him twice. You haven't beaten him. Doesn't matter whether a middleweight's beaten him. Doesn't matter whether a flyweight's beaten him. You haven't beaten him. And if you want to call yourself, when you want to put yourself in the same breath as someone like Muhammad Ali, who fought everyone over 2 generations, way back, like a Sam Langford or
Joe Jeanette, or
any of the old timers, not just in the heavyweights, but I mean, they all used to fight. These guys end up with like 20 or 30 defeats on their records. But you look at their records, Jesus Christ, they were fighting killers like half a dozen times throughout their entire career. And if Fury wants to be thought of as the greatest heavyweight ever, or even in the argument, he's got to do that. Now, he's taking the fight, obviously, because Joshua's coming off 2 defeats, 24 hard rounds against Usyk. His confidence is probably around the ankles, and he is thinking he's had that meltdown in the ring. He's made a bit of a twat of himself. But, so suddenly Fury thinks, right, he's there for the taking. So like a vulture, he moves in and takes him. Now, you can argue that's a sensible business thing or a sensible thing to do to pad your legacy. But I've got more respect for someone of a Joshua type of mentality who will take everyone on, and if he loses, he loses. He don't care. Like, I want to prove that I'm the best. Maybe I'm not the best, but I want to go out there and I'm nailing my colours to the mast. Here I am. Come and get me, or I'll come and get you. We'll fight. May the best man win. I respect that attitude more. It's what I was brought up with. Whereas the Fury attitude is more your sort of modern Mayweather-esque type of thing,
Just careful, calm and careful, kind of. It's almost echoes of the Wilder Fury situation. You remember when Fury came back after the inactivity, losing all the weight, didn't look good. Wilder was like, "Give me that fight." Now it's not exactly the same, but it's similar in a sense of, Joshua was not coming off a massive layoff and losing a lot of weight. He's coming off 2 losses, and his confidence is absolutely shattered. So it's similar in a sense of he's probably Tyson Fury sees vulnerability there, like Wilder saw in Fury.
I think the comparison does hold water. Yeah, I think it's pretty much the same. But I mean, we all know Wilder. You take Fury out of Wilder's resume, who have you got?
Fury out of Wilder's resume.
Yeah, if you take Fury out of Wilder, who's Wilder for? I mean, he ain't really.
Ortiz, Stavern, take your pick. Who's better?
Yeah, but no, I think. Look, if the fight goes ahead, I put it this way: I would expect Fury to beat AJ anyway, but I think it'll be easier because I think Fury is actually having slagged him off or appeared to slag him off. I actually think he is probably the best heavyweight in the world. Usyk will give him a strong argument. I wouldn't rule Usyk out as a winner, but I definitely think he's better than AJ. Even if AJ was, at optimum mental and physical You know,
I think Fury is a tremendous talent. I really do. I don't agree with I don't agree with his way of like talk about these fights. It's very Floyd Mayweather-esque, as you said, but when you look and you actually look at some of the fights he's had in his career, how he's able to adjust, change it up, and even change his style, I think Fury is tremendous. And even if you were talking about AJ probably at his best, most confidence pre-Ruiz, I'd still pick Fury
I would.
personally. I think he just he just have a way of breaking Joshua down in the ring. Even if Joshua had his confidence through the roof and was, he had everything going for him, he'd just find a way to just get to him, beat him in that sense.
He's a highly intelligent fighter. Fury is the type of guy who will go into that ring and he will make adjustments. He barely needs to be told to make adjustments. AJ is the opposite. AJ is the type of guy who will look for, even if he's doing well, he'll look for some sort of affirmation from his corner. And again, by the way, I saw that that Barry McGuigan, what you said, Hatman mentioned it, right? I watched that Barry McGuigan interview, and McGuigan's right. He just said, get rid of the whole damn lot of them, strip it all down. And I've been saying that for ages. I think a lot of people have.
Who would you put in as, obviously, me and you are both agreeing that Peter Fury and AJ would be brilliant, but we have to be realistic. We're not going to get that. If AJ came to you and he said, mate, who do you think I should be trained by? Honestly, objectively, there's trainers out there. Who would you pick? Clifton Mitchell, someone like that?
Clifton Mitchell, no. McGuigan, probably.
Shane McGuigan. That'd be interesting. I think McGuigan is a good trainer. He is, and he has a way of just getting fighters to implement. Dubois still looks a bit rough around the edges, even though he's with McGuigan. But if you see fighters like Coley, he's just transformed them. Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm thinking. I'm not saying I have any great confidence that McGuigan could get the best out of AJ. I honestly don't know. If it ain't Peter Fury, I'm kind of thinking, who is it? But I think when you look at what he's done with Lawrence Coley, who had 2 back-to-back stinkers against
Chamberlain and
Askin. And then he actually, I know Coley didn't look too particularly great in his last fight, but there are definitely improvements there, and he's a big man. He'll probably end up at heavyweight himself, or dare I say it, bridgerweight.
No, I'd say he's going to do heavy.
But
he'll do heavy.
No, I don't know. Yeah, I'll go for McGuigan, but I don't sell it with any sort of great, faith.
For me, it's interesting. I would probably say stick with Garcia for the time being and just do a camp over there with him, because I definitely saw improvements there. But do it in America, get out of your comfort zone, and you see he's going to be around. They might not be heavyweights, but you're around young guys like Bam Rodriguez who are just tremendous, I think, and maybe that could help motivate AJ. It's like seeing these young guys around him, and they're starting their path to greatness, and maybe it's like, actually, I need to be around this rather than in an amateur environment that I've been at my whole life or whole career, and just in the comfort zone. And AJ, it's like, I think in the Usyk rematch, they were saying you're doing brilliant against him, when I think we all knew he wasn't. Like, he was doing better, but he wasn't doing brilliant. But AJ, it's someone who I think overthinks so much. You almost have to tell him he's doing good. If you tell him he needs to improve this, he's just going to be thinking, oh, what do I do now? And you can almost see him the opposite. You could almost see him like actually start doing too much and end up getting hurt or something.
See, AJ strikes me as the person who wants to learn. He actually does want to learn. So I don't think it's an issue with telling him to do something he doesn't want to do. I think it's a question of telling him something he may not want to do, but he'll say, yeah, I'll do that. But how do I do it? And you then have to say to him repeatedly, yeah, you can do this. You can do this. Definitely. You may think you can't, but I'm telling you can. This is, I know it sounds a bit like COD psychology, but being an amateur psychiatrist is part of any trainer's job.
You have to know your fighter. You have to get into their brain.
And that's why it's not, one size don't fit all. I mean, I mentioned Shane McGuigan. He didn't really work out with him with David A, did it? But,
no.
But whoever it is who trains AJ, they have to be in charge. They have to be the governor. They have to be the one saying, right, this is the way things are going to be. If you do this, I'm telling you, you will succeed or you will improve. Don't forget, I mean, AJ could have You could go to Peter Fury, and they could spend the next 3-4 years together, and he still might fail. There's nothing's guaranteed. But at least he would stand a better chance of maximising his potential. Which, and I mean, I think we can all agree that he was with Rob McCracken for too long.
Yes.
And the whole situation again with Fernandez, and I don't understand Garcia Fernandez. I'm surprised. I'm a little bit disappointed in Garcia for putting up with that crap. But whoever it's going to be, they've got to be. I like your point about taking him to a gym where there's lots of younger fighters who are really got a bit between the teeth, because that can rub off on you.
Oh yeah.
The atmosphere in a gym is very, very important. It's often overlooked. So but you've got to be in charge. You've got to say, this is the way it's going to be. We're going to do this, this, and this, and you better do it. We can get out of my gym.
Don't massage his ego, basically.
Exactly.
I think I agree. I think maybe that's something that I think maybe people like Garcia and Fernandez, because there was so much money coming in, they just didn't want to upset the apple cart. Just in that sense, in the sense of like, he keeps winning, and we don't upset him in camp. We keep getting paid. Well, he needs a fighter, a trainer who's like, look, I don't care if you fire me. I'm telling you what it is.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily say this trainer in terms of what I think he could do technically, but a Teddy Atlas, someone who just doesn't care what he says or who he pisses off, he's just going to tell you like it is.
Oscar De La Hoya went to Teddy Atlas once and said, would you train me? And Teddy Atlas said, I'll consider it. And Oscar De La Hoya said, well, can you come over here? Like, he gave him a place to be. And Atlas said, no. He said, you're not interviewing me, I'm interviewing you. You can come and see me on this day at this time. And De La Hoya said, no, I think you end up going with Mayweather Senior. But that's what you need, someone who's no nonsense. But all the boxing trainers that have been worth anything that I've seen have had that, no nonsense attitude. Like, Eddie Futch with Riddick Bowe. At the moment, line out. That was a lot of money to be made with Riddick Bowe. I know Futch was with him, took him to the title and everything. The moment he started pissing about, Futch said, forget.
I think Eddie Futch was tremendous. I liked Eddie Futch a lot as a trainer. I think he was brilliant. And there's great trainers like that who've they've understood their fighter, but they understood not to take any crap at the same time. They just knew how to get around their fighter. They knew how to get the best out of them, but they also knew they're the ones who are in charge. And I think they're the best trainers. I think that if you have a trainer who pampers the fighter, almost caters to them, and is just kind of there to be almost a glorified cheerleader, you're never going to bring the best out of your fighter. It's just not going to happen.
No, well, as you put it, that you're massaging their ego, you're not teaching them anything.
100%.
It's the same with anything.
I've seen that.
Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, I've seen that with fighters. Now, these fighters were never going to be world beaters. Just the fighters that I've seen who had trainers, like, they were never going to be world beaters. But I believe that some of them could have done a lot better with a different trainer. I'm thinking of someone specifically here, not going to mention him, but he would massage their egos to such an extent. I remember being told this, and I'm not going to name this trainer, that if one of his fighters ever had a bad spar, he'd say to them, "Don't worry, I won't let you spar him again." And like, you can't do that. Like, that's like, are you like a dad to this? Is this like your son, and you're afraid that he's going to have a scratched knee or something like that? You can't do that.
I was talking to an ex-pro who won a couple of area. He won an area belt, one of those British Masters belts. So he was a lower level guy. I met him at a wedding not so long ago. I know him anyway, but we were at the same wedding, and I said, he just retired. And I said, how do you view your career? And he said, I could have done much more. He was managed by John Peck. And I said, how are you, what about your training? Would you like to have had a good trainer? And he said, I would like to have had a trainer. He said, I never had a trainer. I trained myself.
That's crazy. That is crazy.
They've got to like area level, but he never had a trainer. He said, I'd go in the gym and I'd watch what the other guys were doing, and I'd just copy it. It's madness.
And imagine how good that could have been. Like, that could have been British level, maybe not world level. You could have been British level with a trainer who would brought you along. I mean, if you're good enough to get to area, the area is not massively, but it's better than. It's not journeyman, not anything like that. So
I've seen some great area title fights at the small halls, and great ones. And it means the world to them when they win that belt.
The unknown gems of boxing are those small hall shows.
Yeah, because I know you get a lot of 40, 36, runarounds. but at the same time, the top 2 or 3 fights are normally what they used to call nobbins fights, where I don't know whether you had this in Ireland, but in England, you'd ping coins into the ring if it was a great fight, and then the fighters would share it. They could call it nobbins. But they are all gems, yeah.
I haven't been to a small hall show in a while now. I've only been to one show since 2019, and that was obviously Joyce. Who was a Hammer, and that was fun. That was fun. That was
yeah, you did, didn't you?
I did. I love doing it. I love every minute of that. That's why I hope Ben Eubank isn't off, because I would like to go to that as well and do some more stuff with that, because that'd be more fun as well. But it's been a good one now. So we're kind of coming towards the back end of this. And before we finish, I also got to ask you, because this week has been so hectic with boxing talk, we haven't had a chance to really properly talk about Triple G Canelo. What are I imagine you're going to do a prediction video, so I'm not going to ask you to spoil it here, but I'll just ask you yes or no. Are you excited, and do you see a competitive fight with Triple G Canelo?
I'm more excited than I thought I would be. I don't mind spoiling. I'll give you my prediction if you like. But I think I like the fact that Golovkin is under Canelo's skin. I like the way he's been. So, they talk about mind games. A lot of the time, when people talk about mind games, they don't know what they're talking about. Mind games is not insults. Mind games is not blowing verbal raspberries at people. It's actually getting in someone's head properly. And I think Golovkin is inside Canelo's head. And Golovkin's a tough little bastard. I mean, he looks like a geography teacher, but he is a tough guy.
The ultimate looks can be deceiving type character, isn't he?
His brother, I think, was killed. He was in the army and was killed. That affected him quite a lot. But I think he really wants this fight, and he's up for it. And they both are. So I think I'm more excited about it than I thought I would be. Because when it was first moved, I thought we really need another.
I was like that as well. And I'm like same as you. At the closer you've got to it, the more like I'm going to stay and do a watch along on Saturday for it. I'm looking forward to it. Truth be told.
Yeah, definitely, I'll join you for that one. But I won't give my prediction. But let's put it this way. I'd make Canelo a strong favourite. I think it's perfectly feasible if he works the body, he can stop him. Because Golovkin he's got a lot of miles on the clock and he's no spring chicken. But we have to remember, Canelo lost to Bivol, and rightly so. I think it was a perfectly legit defeat. And what's going on inside his head? And also, I say this every time someone mentions Canelo. I don't trust how he has torn his way through various weights and cleaned up. And against Bivol, it looked to me like he hadn't been, shall we say, using his usual training methods. So I wonder what's going to happen when he faces Golovkin, because he's going back down now to 168.
He's gone back down to 168, and I genuinely believe that no matter what Golovkin we have against Canelo, he'll bring his A game, and Canelo will never have an easy fight against Golovkin. Even if he wins a wider decision or a more clear-cut decision, or maybe even stops him, he won't leave that fight saying, well, that was easy.
No. Also, you look at Golovkin, when he fought Murata, those early rounds, I'm thinking he's going to lose this. Because
with the benefit of hindsight, I think that was more ring rust.
Quite possibly, but I did think, second or third round, I thought,
he looked bad. Oh, yeah, he looked very bad early on.
He was hurt to the body again. He's been hurt a few times in his last few fights to the body. But he came on strong, and then he looked like the killer of old from about the sixth round on.
From the 6th round on, it was writing on the wall. He looked like the old Triple G. And again, like when I look back at that fight, with the benefit of hindsight, I kind of said, he was out of the ring. I know Murata was too, but I think that Golovkin he felt that inactivity more, because that's probably the longest stretch of inactivity he's ever had. Because this is a guy who's normally very active. Even if he was fighting twice a year, he went and had, one fight in the space of 16 months. So I reckon that was what was wrong with Golovkin early on, rather than the A. I think it was just back in the ring under the lights, the ring rust.
And that fight might have been the best thing that could have happened to him. But he did have a few hairy rounds where he's thinking, what's going on here? This isn't going to script. But I see it being a tough fight. I do favour Canelo.
I have a thumbnail ready to go for the predictions, but I'm not going to give it away. But all I know is is that I can make this prediction and it's going to be safe, that we're going to have a good fight on Saturday night.
Yes, I think
that's a safe prediction.
Yeah. So let's hope no members of the royal family die. All right.
I think that it's okay in the States. I don't think they're going to be as worried. So I think they'll let that fight go ahead no matter what, regardless. But mate, I'm just going to 50 minutes here. I'm going to call this one here. But before we do, obviously, before we finish up, obviously, I got to let you one last time, let the people know. There's a couple in the build now. If you could smash the like button, it'd be appreciative. Joe Stunner Boxing, tell them what you do and where they can find you.
Joe Stunner Boxing. I don't do interviews or anything like that. It's really just predictions, previews. I give my opinion. I might talk a bit about the history. I'm not a historian, don't get me wrong. I'm just a fan, really, and I like talking to other boxing fans. But like reading your comments. Please subscribe. Let's build the channel up. I always appreciate your time, and thank you, Gman, for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Mate, it's absolutely no problem at all. Always a pleasure. I'll hopefully have you on again soon, probably before the end of the year. And hopefully by then you'll be nearly, if not at 1,000 by then. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Nice one.
Hopefully by then I'll have 10K as well. There you go. We can. Hopefully that's one of the goals for the year. But people, I'm gonna call it there. I hope you all enjoyed it. Have a quick chat with you backstage after this, and yeah, smash the old like button on the way out, lads. Peace.
Thank you. Bye.